Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys my top 5 favorite eyeshadow palettes of all times. I actually started doing these videos a few years ago. I started with my top 10 berry lipsticks, and then I did my top 10 favorite red lipsticks, and then my top 10 favorite nude lipsticks. But I felt like now is a good time to do eyeshadow palettes because you're just seeing people literally from like here up. And I don't know about you guys, but I'd say that like the last 6 to 8 months, I have really fallen back in love with eyeshadow palettes. I had definitely kind of fallen out of them and was doing more like really like natural eyes, like just the whole like natural thing. But the last 6 to 8 months, I've just really been into eyeshadow. But when I had my top 10 sitting here, I was like, you know what? That is a lot of eyeshadow palettes. So I decided to do just my top 5. So if I lost every other eyeshadow palette in my collection and could only repurchase 5 over, it would be this 5. I do not have any colorful eyeshadow palettes in here because I usually don't really lean towards colorful ones. I'll do like, like a pop of color on the lower lash line, but I am more of like a neutral kind of, maybe like mauves and like cooler tones. I do like warm tones as well, but I definitely lean more on like the cooler tone sides because I do think it looks better with my blue eyes. But yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and jump right in and get started. I do want to say some of these you cannot get anymore, but you can still find them, and I will link them down below if I can find them. But if I didn't say these, then like, you know what I'm saying, it wouldn't be truly my top 5. So the first one I'm starting out with, I feel like if you guys again have been following me from the beginning, you guys would know how much I love this palette. This is the LORAC Mega Pro 3 palette, and this has got that white soft touch packaging. Mine is like super dirty because again, I loved this palette so much. So this is a, again, very neutral palette, but you have so many different shades in here. I feel like you've got so many really nice transition shades. You've got such a variety of both. You got your, 2 matte rose and then your 2 shimmers. And again, just so many great shades that I think work for every day. Now, I will say that 2 other palettes I was going to mention when I did my top 10 was the original LORAC and then the LORAC Pro 3. But the reason that I didn't mention them is because when I was, again, looking through my collection, I was like, I don't really feel the need to mention these as well if I'm doing top 5 because there are a lot of similar shades in here. Like, you've got your typical black, it's jet black in here, and then you've got just black in here. But like the shade mauve and violet gray are very similar. The shade taupe and walnut is very similar. Sable and bark's very similar. Espresso, hickory, just, again, a lot of similarities to this eyeshadow palette are actually in here. And then I felt the same way with like the Pro 3. This is like the Mega. But this one, again, there was just a lot of very similar tones in here. And even though I love both of these, and I think there's actually some exact shades in here. Yeah, you've got jet black, again, just a lot of very similar shades in both of these palettes. But if, again, I had to choose between all of these, it would definitely be this one because I feel like I kind of get the best of both worlds with the original palette and the LORAC Pro 3. I wasn't a fan of the LORAC Pro 2, and I think I've actually got the 4 as well, which I think I might have a video on my channel somewhere. But this one, like I said, I just feel like anytime if I'm like doing like makeup for a special occasion and I need like great transition shades and a variety of transition shades, I always grab this palette and just throw it in my bag so I have it because again, I feel like there's just so many beautiful shades in here and so many beautiful like lid shades. So again, like I said, this one is just like, if you can still get your hands on this palette, I really think you need it. If you can't, I know you can still get your hands on like the Pro palettes. I really liked the first one and the third one. The third one's definitely more of like the typical like really light neutral tones, but I do like them. LORAC's formula, I feel like I don't know why people don't talk about LORAC still because I feel like they have some like really amazing products. I still love their highlighters. I still love their blushes. I clearly still love their eyeshadow palettes. I think out of all the eyeshadow palettes I have in my collection, I have a lot of LORAC. I have their unzipped palettes. I liked the original unzipped ones. I think I have some of the other ones as well, like the mountain ones or ocean ones, and those are okay. They're like, kind of just like, again, definitely not my favorites. Now moving on to this one right here, I feel like everyone should have seen this coming. This is the ABH Sultry Palette. You can actually still get this in like a holiday kit, which I've seen on sale at a lot of places where you get, I think, like a mascara and an eyeliner. But I love this eyeshadow palette. It's the eyeshadow palette that I've got on my eyes today. I have this silver shade Cyborg. It's more of like a taupey shade, and I love this palette. Again, I feel like anytime I want like neutral, dramatic, like smokiness, this is the palette that I think of. And I feel like this was such an underrated palette. Like, I mention that every time I'm talking about it because I feel like people just like completely looked over top of this palette. But I love it. It's so incredibly great. There is a lot of fallout from her eyeshadows, but if you dip your brush in there and tap it off, you don't really get a lot of fallout on your eyes. And the blendability of ABH's eyeshadows, I feel like, is so amazing. I've only ever had, I think, issues maybe it's like 1 or 2 of her shades out of all of her palettes, but overall, I think that, like I said, this is just, I mean, it's an amazing palette. If you're someone who really likes dramatic cool tone eyeshadows, you should definitely pick this one up. Now, this next one here, you also can't get anymore, but again, I have mentioned this so many times on my channel. It's the Zodiac palette by Kathleen Lights and Colourpop. I really, really love this palette. I guess Kathleen Lights, I'm not sure if they're not doing anything anymore, but like, I feel like she hasn't mentioned them in a really long time, but I'm actually trying to cover this mirror up so I don't like blind you guys. But I love this palette. It was probably one of my favorite like Colourpop palettes in general. Let's see if it'll, there we go. One of my favorite Colourpop palettes in general, because this to me, like, I can use this for every day, or I can do this and use like a pop of color. Like this shade right here on the lower lash line is really beautiful. And believe it or not, I use this shade Aquarius all the time, but my favorite shade in here is the Libra. This is like that perfect transition shade for me. I can't tell you guys how many eyeshadow palettes that I grab that I'm using it, but then I'm like, okay, I need a good transition shade to go in first, and I will reach for this palette. And then I love the shade the Virgo as well. I will say the only thing is this black in here that has like the little bits of shimmer in it. I do prefer like the black from the LORAC palettes or the ABH palettes, because they're just a little bit more pigmented than the black in here, but I really like this. Of course, you've got your warm tones in here. My favorite shade to put on my lid is the Leo, and I'm not into all of this, like, what is it, astrology and stuff. I don't get into that, but I am a Leo. I do know that, and I really love this shade. It's like a gorgeous gold with like a warm kind of like orangey undertone. It's really, really pretty. And then I do love the shade the Cancer as well, and I like that in my inner corner, but I also love Gemini on my lid as well. Again, these are just really good eyeshadows. I haven't tried out a new Colourpop palette, I feel like, in a really long time, but I do want to. I just haven't had a chance to. So if you can still find this anywhere, I would definitely recommend picking it up because it is a really good palette. Alright guys, moving on to the fourth eyeshadow. This is the Milani Soft and Sexy eyeshadow palette, and I actually got into this after watching Katie do like an eyeshadow tutorial with this, and like it looked so incredibly like soft. Like, okay, if this is like the perfect name palette, like soft and sexy. The eyeshadows in here, the mattes, kind of reminded me of the old like Stila matte eyeshadows. They're not like super pigmented. They're very like soft, like you build them up and it creates a very like diffused look to the eyes. It's very unique, but again, I see how like maybe a lot of people, this wouldn't be their cup of tea, but if you want eyeshadow palettes that aren't overly pigmented or are very like easy to build up and kind of get that very like soft, smoky look, but not super like smoky and dark and intense, then this is a great eyeshadow palette. I will say the only downside to this is the shimmer shades in here are not the best. They kind of remind me more of like those everyday shimmer shades, not the like metallic ones that's on my lid. But again, it creates that very, like that formula creates that very soft look, if that makes sense. So if you're someone who is into very like soft eyeshadow and stuff like that, you guys should definitely pick up this palette. I actually might do like a get ready with me, like using this palette, because I do really like it. I love matte eyeshadows, and I love like a very like a matte kind of like smoky eye. Again, this is a great palette. Really, really good. These aren't like the Milani eyeshadows that come in like the quads. They're not nearly as pigmented as that, but like I said, I feel like this formula is like very special in its own way to create that very like soft eyeshadow look. All right, and then lastly, I feel like, again, if you have someone who watched me for a really long time, I have to talk about this Viseart Golden Hour eyeshadow palette. So this is one of those eyeshadow palettes that I kind of rediscovered over the last few months because, like I said, I've just really gotten into eyeshadow palette again. I feel like a lot of people don't like Viseart eyeshadows, but I actually really, really like them. I will say that their formula kind of varies. So this is what the eyeshadow, let me take the little thing off here. So this is what the eyeshadow, if it'll focus on it, there we go, the eyeshadows look like. These are a little bit different than like their smaller eyeshadow palettes. Like their smaller eyeshadow palettes, I would say, are a little bit similar to that Milani palette. The mattes are really soft and buildable. They got a little more pigmentation, but like the shimmers in there are a little bit more of like everyday shimmers. But in this palette, these are very like metallic and out there. This gold shade, which is, what is this? Let's see. I have no idea how you pronounce this, but this gold shade and then this deeper gold shade is absolutely gorgeous all over the lid. But one thing that I really like about this palette is this like red shade in here. I feel like it's a very unique shade. This one right here, and I feel like it's one of those shades that I reach in again to kind of just go in and like buff out the transition, but pairing it with like the other shades in here, like this warm brown and then like this black, it just creates such, I feel like, a unique eye look against my blue eyes. And again, it's just one of those that I'm just constantly reaching for. This black I feel like is really user friendly. It's not like the ABH ones where it's like super pigmented and it takes a little while to buff out. This one I feel like is more of like, I'd say like a charcoal black. It's not like a super black, but you can build it up and again get that really nice just softness, which I feel like is sometimes really hard to get with a black that's very pigmented. You know, usually it's very bold and intense. But again, I really, really love this eyeshadow palette. I know that, you know, Viseart's kind of a hit or miss. Like, people either love their eyeshadow palettes or then people absolutely hate them. But I've always really, really liked them. And I think, again, because like it gives that very like almost like everyday kind of like eyeshadow palette, not like very dramatic like what I've got on today, but like what you throw on and somebody'd be like, wow, you know, you have such beautiful natural makeup. That's kind of like the vibe that I get from Viseart's eyeshadow like formula. I just really like it, and I think that it's really easy to use. I think it's Leanne that always talks about their like their matte ones. It's like a huge set of like neutrals, like browns and stuff like that. And she always really talks about that palette, and I do want to pick it up, but I feel like I've already got so many neutral eyeshadow palettes that I just never ended up breaking down and buying anymore. But the Sephora sale is coming up, so maybe if we get 20% off, I'll pick it up. But yeah, guys, that is it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed this top 10 series, like I said, just let me know and I will continue to do them. I could do bronzers next or maybe blushes. I don't know. You guys let me know. And also, if there's any other products you guys want me to review, let me know as well. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.